So we're going to start today with the cervical bony anatomy, and the first thing that you're going to look for is you are going to look for the vertebral body, and this is this big part of the spine of the cervical vertebrae right there. The next bony landmark we have is our spinous process, and that's right here. And if you look really closely, you can see that this one's bifurcated or split into two, and this is unique to the cervical spine. We have a few more bony landmarks. We have our transverse processes, which are these wings right here on the side. The other thing that we have is we have our superior and inferior articular surfaces, and this is this area right here and then right here that articulates with the vertebrae, the segment above and below. The other thing we want to note right here, this hole, is our vertebral foramen. If we look specifically at our atlas or C1, we can see that it looks a lot different than the others. We have a few different bony landmarks on this one specifically. We have our anterior and our posterior arches, and these are going to be where the bony landmarks will sit right into the skull. The other thing that we have, similar to the other cervical vertebrae, is we have our superior and our inferior articular surfaces. On our C2 vertebrae, we can see that this is the most unique out of all of them. We have this bony landmark right here that points out the top. That's the dens, and that's how you can identify C2. Because there's more movement in the thoracic spine, we have a few more bony landmarks and articulation pieces on the thoracic vertebrae that you will need to know. So as the same as with the cervical, we have our body, we have our transverse processes, and we have our spinous process. We have this piece right that goes between the body and the articulating surface right here, and this is known as the pedicle. We have this place right here in between the articulating surface and the transverse process, and this is known as the lamina. And I mentioned a few times the articulating processes are the points, the superior and inferior, which are the points, and then we have articulating and superior surface and our articulating inferior surface, and those are also known as the facet joints. So to go on, the lumbar vertebrae is really easy to remember because it's the same as the thoracic and cervical that we've done so far, but let's just review. So we have our vertebral body, we have our lamina, which connects the spinous process to the transverse process, so the lamina is this part right here. We have the pedicle, which is from the vertebral body to the transverse process right here. And then we have our, as we talked about before, our spinous process, our transverse processes on either side, and our vertebral foramen, the hole down the middle. As we look at our spine as a whole, we can remember that there are 7 cervical, 12 thoracic, and 5 lumbar, or breakfast is at 7, lunch is at 12, dinner is at 5. When you go more specific, we can see that we have a bunch of fused bones together at the end of the spinal column. We can see that we have these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fused together right there. That's known as the sacrum. And then these last 4 bones, 1, 2, 3, 4 that are fused together, that is the coccyx. As we look at the spine again, we can see these off-white colored segments, and they're located right here, here, and here, in between each of the different vertebrae, all the way from the cervical to the thoracic. These are known as intervertebral discs, and are joints that help provide cushion between the vertebral segments. The next joint we have is our atlanto-occipital joint, and this is where the occiput articulates with the atlas, right there. The next joint that we have is our atlantoaxial joint, and that is where our atlas and our axis articulate, so this joint right here. The last joint that we have is our spinal facet joint, and as I turn the model around, you can see as I keep it to the side that the inferior portion of the vertebrae above articulates with the superior articulating surface of the joint below, and that's known as the facet joint.